Hello, everybody. Welcome to another weekly session. Today's weekly session, we'll be discussing three topics. First is premature convergence, other would be sklearn pipeline optimization, and we'll also learn how to understand and diagnosis of the learning curves. So these three topics are for today's session, and we'll try to understand and cover them up in the most fastest and in the most detailed manner. So both speed and depth. Alright, let's get started with the first topic. The first topic which I want to discuss is premature convergence. This is an interesting topic. We know about bad convergence or converging at a local optima, but what exactly is premature convergence? So let's talk about premature convergence. So what exactly is convergence? I won't be reading the article. I will just pick up the interesting parts of the article, and I just got to know about this topic from this website. So that's why I chose to discuss. So this was something new to me, even new to me. This was even new to me, and I got to learn a lot about, not a lot, but yeah, this is something like you got to know that okay, this also exists. So that's the beauty of it. That's the fantastic part. So convergence, we all know, like the stopping condition for an optimization algorithm, where the stable you achieve that where the algorithm achieves or assumes that it has reached a stable point. That is what you call as a convergence point, right? And what is premature convergence? What is reaching local optima? Reaching local optima is your model is trying to converge with the help of convergence algorithm, and it reaches a local optima. So it assumes that it has reached the optima, but actually it has not reached the optima, and it tries to get over the local optima. It tries to search around its nearby, but it is unable to because of the understanding of the algorithm that it has reached optima, but that is not the global optima, that is the local optima. What is premature convergence? Premature convergence happens when the convergence happened at a local optima, but that too very soon. By what do I mean very soon? Something which is extremely near to the starting point. So you just start your model training, and the model says that it has converged. So that is premature convergence. You get the point? You just starting the model training is, say you have a convex curve, right? Convex curve with a hell lot of the local optimas and one or very few global optima. Now it is going through it, and then all of a sudden you go through a you just started model training, and then it lands over a, it says that the model has completely trained. When the model has completely trained, in that particular scenario, you would say that okay, the model has trained, but when you're just starting and then the model is saying that okay, it has converged, that is premature convergence. When does it happen? It happens usually when there's a greedy search, or in cases of reinforcement learning. It's quite common in the cases of reinforcement learning. So just let me share something. So if we consider the response surface of an objective function under optimization as a geometrical landscape, and we are seeking a minimum of the function, then the premature optimization refers to finding a valley close to the starting point of the search that has less depth than the deepest valley in the few domain. Good enough? And yeah, let's see how to address this. So one of the most popular addressing problem of which you might have thought of is the learning rate. Control the learning rate. Second is the evolutionary algorithms. And where does it happen? Actually, where does it happen? It happens in the field of evolutionary computation or genetic algorithms, that is swarm computing or those kind of things. So that is the place where multiple optimization algorithms work together, and you have lot of local optima. So you just started, and it would give the feeling that it has just converged, but it has actually not converged. So that's what it is. Idea of selective pressure is this. So that is, first is using regularization, early stopping, those kind of things can help. Then a better weight initialization can help. Pretty obvious. But what I wanted to discuss was the novelty of the idea. So things like learning rate, the optimizer, how you control the hyperparameters. Basically, controlling the hyperparameter in a better and in a smarter way would prevent premature convergence. Empirically, it is found that TANH activation gives rise to faster convergence to training algorithms than logistic functions. As much research to deep learning is ultimately directed at overcoming the Overcoming the premature convergence, the fact that fitting neural networks are subject to premature convergence motivates the use of methods such as learning curves to monitor and diagnose the convergence. So we have early stopping, we have optimization algorithms, those kind of things. All right, I think this is good enough. You got the idea of it. Let's move. Hi, so let's move on to our next topic, which is using machine learning curves to diagnose the machine learning model performance. So basically, model performance diagnosis. So after reading this post, you'll know learning curves are plots that show the changes in learning performance over in terms of experience. Learning curves of model performance on the training and validation datasets can be used to diagnose an underfit, overfit, and well-fit model. Learning curves of model performance can be used to diagnose whether the train and the validation datasets are not relatively representative of the problem domain. So first we'll talk about learning rates. First the tutorial talks about learning curves, then it talks about diagnosing the model behavior and diagnosing unrepresentative datasets. So I think we know a lot about learning curves in machine learning, and if you don't know, you can check out my playlist on model and metrics evaluation. That playlist has a lot of things that will definitely help you out. So let's get to the second topic, diagnosing the model behavior. So there are three types of common dynamics which you might face: underfit, overfit, and good fit. So underfit is a curve like this where you have a training loss very low, whereas the validation loss unexpectedly high from the training loss. So this is what we call as a underfit. May also be identified by a training loss that is decreasing and continues to decrease at the end of the plot. This indicates that the model is capable of further learning and possible further improvements, that the training was halted prematurely. A plot of learning curves shows underfitting if the training loss remains flat regardless of the training, or training loss continues to decrease until the end of training. Alright. So these are the indicators how to identify whether by curves, how do you identify whether or not, diagnosing methods, how do you understand the model performance. This comes under metrics evaluation. We have discussed this. Let's revisit the topic. I wanted to revisit the topic. So let's talk about overfitting. This is overfitting. The validation. Overfitting, if the loss continues to decrease with experience and the validation decreases to a point, then begins increasing. So it increases, then validation increases, and the validation loss increases, but the training loss keeps on decreasing. This is overfitting. So training loss improves, but the validation loss improves, then deteriorates. What is a good fit? This is both go hand in hand along. Now, diagnosing unrepresentative datasets. This is something which I wanted to explain or talk about. Unrepresentative dataset. What exactly is unrepresentative dataset? So learning curves can be used to diagnose the properties of a dataset and whether or not it is relatively representative. So what exactly it is? Unrepresentative dataset means a dataset that may not capture the statistical characteristics relative to another dataset drawn from the same domain, such as between a train and validation dataset. This can commonly occur if the number of samples in a dataset is too small or relative to another dataset. Two common properties are observed. Cases can be the training dataset is relatively unrepresentative or the validation data is relatively unrepresentative. So first case, training data which is unrepresentative. Unrepresentative of the domain. What exactly? Unrepresentative of what? Unrepresentative of the domain from which the data has been sampled from. Statistically sampled from. So unrepresentative of the domain from which the data has been sampled from, unrepresentative of the domain from which the data has been sampled from. That's what it is. So first case, unrepresentative trained dataset. Unrepresentative trained dataset means that the training does not provide sufficient information to learn about the problem and relative to the validation. So what exactly it is? Unrepresentative, don't go by the definition. Let me tell you what exactly is. Get the sense of it and you will understand. This is extremely practical. You will observe this quite often. You have a good data set, you have trained your models, but while testing out, you observe that you don't get good testing performance. Let's say you have overcome the ideas of underfitting, overfitting, and those things. You have done everything at your best, but you're getting a good training and validation, but at the time of testing, it's not showing good results. What it might be? It might be an unrepresentative data set. Please remember this very clearly and carefully. It might be what you're training on cats, and you're, let's say you're making a pet classifier. The pet classifier, every image in the pet classifier was in the images were in grass and the background was not noisy. Now in the time of at the time of testing, the backgrounds are a bit blurred, noisy, those kind of aberrations are there. So that is validation is unrepresentative. Let's say the opposite happened. You're training on quite different data set, and while testing out, it is quite different. So unrepresentative training data set. That's what it is. So it is quite often like this line I may not completely agree. This may occur if the validation dataset has too few examples as compared to the training dataset. I do not agree to this. But what exactly this phenomena is, it's extremely common phenomena and it happens quite often in the industry. So if you're in the industry and you face this phenomena, understand, please check out the data. Overfitting, underfitting are the parameters of models, are the parameters of model training, are the attributes of model training, are the characteristics of model training. But what if what you are training on is not perfect? If what you are training on is not perfect, then that is an case of unrepresentative data set. And there are two cases: either you are testing out on something on which the model was never trained on, or you're training on something on which it will never be tested on. Mind the difference. These are two possibilities. What a brilliant example I have put forward to you. Not over here, I have put forward to you. Yeah, all right. Let's wrap this topic over here and let's move on to the final topic of the day, that is sklearn pipeline optimization. Till then, ensure that you have hit the subscribe button. Hi. So let's begin with the last topic of the day, that is how to perform sklearn model pipeline optimization. This is nothing new. This is basically with the help of Grid Search CV. Earlier we did with the help of Optuna. Optuna is Bayesian optimization. Grid Search CV is a method or is a different method. It's not random search, it's grid search CV, so you have a grade based on whatever it is. So it's a different method. The code is slightly borrowed from machine learning mastery. Apart from this, we have performed hyperparameter optimization, but this is something I wanted to share. We have not discussed grid search CV, and it's never bad to revisit an old topic. So this is what we are trying to do. This is everything from their basic pre-processing, extremely simple, nothing much. Standard scalar, weighting threshold for feature selection, and k-neighbor classifier, a simple classifier, not even random forest. Whatever it is, a simple dataset with a simple transformations. Let's see how to perform grid search CV. Very similar, but we'll discuss the working of grid search CV. That's the main idea of over here. So what does grid search CV does is exhaustive search over specified parameters for an estimator. Mind the words exhaustive search. It searches over all the parameters one by one and finds out the best set of parameters which are there for a model to perform training on. So that's what it does. And yep. So good enough. So it's a bit time consuming. It helps to loop through predefined hyperparameters and fit your estimator on a training set. So in the end, you can select the best set of hyperparameters. And there's a difference between grid search CV and versus random search CV. Is in grid search, we define the combinations and do the training, whereas in random search, the model selects the combinations randomly. Both are effective ways of parameter training that increase the model generated. So random search does like is not exactly too random. It's like picking up random values and then proceeding in the direction where the random values get suitable, or more or less that is a Bayesian optimization. So let's not get into it. Great search CV is basically trying and estimating out with all the set of possible values, all the set of parameters which are there. You try to experiment with those parameters and find out which is the best set of parameters for a model, and fit the model with those parameters and deliver the same model for a pipeline. So that's what Grid Search CV does. And for feature selection, we are using this variance threshold. So it's one of the most classic and basic example. So our pipeline has three parameters. One is scalars, so one is the scaling parameter, one is the selector feature selection method, and the model for training. So now we'll do the Grid Search CV. For that, this is a practice for you. I would remove this part of code, but keep the comments so that you can have a good practice over here. So let's say for scalar, I want to try out standard scalar. What about min-max scalar? What about normalizer? What about max apps scalar? Test out all the four possibilities. When it comes to classifier, you want to, now this is, if I want to test out different classifier, that is one thing. If that is something I want, then what I want to do is KNN, RNN, not RNN, sorry, RF, something of those. But if I want to keep my classifier fixed, but its parameters changed, then what I can do is do this. And let's say n neighbors should be 10, 30, 100. 30, 50, good enough. So is the case with p value. It can be 1, 2. So is the value with leaf size. Let's say 1, 10, 20. Now let's go to another factor, which is selector, which is the feature selector, and I want to experiment out with the values of feature selector. Let's say 0, 0.01, 0.02. And if we run that, it will show error. Because we need double dash over here. So I think we chose a very high threshold value over here. We could have chosen 0.012. Cross validation 2. And this is the best set of features we obtain. Thereby obtain result df. And this is the entire result of all the parameters search and everything. So very simple, extremely simple. This is Grid Search CV. This is something we didn't discuss. We discussed in one of our weekly sessions, in the very early weekly sessions, wherein we discussed what exactly is Grid Search CV, why to use it, how to use it. But we didn't exactly implement it. This is how the implementation gets done. And once you do a hands-on implementation, you get a better understanding, better realization of how the things are performed, how the things are implemented, and that's how you get to know a hell lot of more things. Else if I were to deliver it orally. Oral delivering is one aspect that is also needed. So once you have a picture in your subconscious mind, then if you are asked to recollect it after a matter of 4, 5, 10 months, then it's something beautiful emerges out of something. Something beautiful emerges out of your subconscious memory, and that's something I would always love to happen. Yeah. All right, let's wrap up the session over here. We had an amazing discussion over this session. I hope you learned a lot. Till then, take care. Bye bye. If there's any topic you would like me to take up, please let me know. All right. Bye bye.